So by the time we get to August 28th, 1963, when Dr. King is standing in front of who? Lincoln. He's signifying again. Lincoln, the great emancipator, he stands there on August 28, 1963 at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, and he says, "A great American whose symbolic shadow we stand, signed an Emancipation Proclamation." He's saying, America, listen to yourself. We try to remember that speech as I Have a Dream speech, and in some ways it was about the dream, but Dr. King's vision was bigger than just a dream, and dreams don't have budgets attached to them. Dr. King was thinking about something else. This speech was about broken promises. He was saying, America, listen to yourself and listen to your promise. He said, great American whose symbolic shadow we stand, signed the Emancipation Proclamation. He said that the Declaration of Independence, that the Emancipation Proclamation, he said they were promissory notes, they were like checks. He said that yet the Negro's check has been returned insufficient funds. It's things, Dr. King, they want you to listen to. He said, I refuse to believe that the great vaults of democracy could be empty. He said, the Negro stands on a vast island of poverty amidst a vast ocean of material wealth and prosperity. He was saying, America, you promised that the Negro doesn't have anything. The legacy of King is not just getting America to do right by white folk and black folk and to get people to sit at the table of brotherhood like a multicultural Gap commercial. He was saying, America, you promised. 13, 14, 15 Amendments, America, you promised. Emancipation Proclamation, America, you promised. Plessy vs. Ferguson, 1896, America, you tried to promise. 1954, Brown vs. Board of Education, America, you promised. Brown v. Board 2, 1955, America, you promised. 1964, public accommodations, America, you promised. 1965, Voting Rights Act, America, you made a promise. The legacy of King is to get America to listen to itself so that we can live in a nation that is as good as its promise. And that becomes the work of us. Because to do that, we got to remember this thing right. The legacy of King challenges us to remember truthfully. To remember truthfully. It is so easy, family, to remember what we want to remember and forget what we want to forget. In some ways, America and the West in general does that. Andres Hussein talks about the great time paradox. It means that on the one hand, we love to remember stuff. You go down to Bojangles or McDonald's or Burger King, they got the placemat, 50th anniversary of this, 25th anniversary of that. You turn on the TV, we always commemorate something, making new coins to remember something. We've built more museums and mausoleums in the last 30 years than at any point in human history. We have a kind of instant nostalgia. We got TV shows like Best Week Ever. You watch Real Housewives of Atlanta, Basketball Wives of this, Wives of that. I don't know, no drinks and ain't none of them really married. But the show come on, a week after the show's over, they got the reunion episode. We love to remember stuff. We do, we love it. But at the very same time, we don't want to remember the stuff that hurts. We want to remember the victories. We want to feel good about what happened. We want to remember August 28, 1963, because that's when Dr. King gave the I Have a Dream speech. And it makes us feel good. And we want to remember August 28, 2008, when Barack Obama gave his acceptance speech for the Democratic Party. We said, oh yeah, August 28, 1963 is awesome. King had a dream. August 28, 2008 is just as awesome. Barack Obama fulfilled a dream. That feels good, but what about August 28, 2005, when Katrina reaches its height? And a nation of people, a community of people are literally washed away, rendered disposable. What about August 28, 1955, when Emmett Till is murdered? A little black boy from Chicago down in Mississippi, murdered and beaten. His face 5 times the normal size for something he didn't even do. 28th, that becomes inconvenient. We want to remember Dr. King, the man that everybody loved, but nobody wants to remember the fact that Dr. King, when he died in '68, was unpopular. The political establishment said, Dr. King, stay in a Negro preacher's place. You can talk about nonviolence when Negroes are getting beaten with sticks and bitten by dogs. It's okay to tell them nonviolence, but when it comes time to say this war in Vietnam is wrong, stay in a Negro preacher's place. They forget that. They forget the fact that Dr. King didn't make People magazine's Most Admired Americans list the year he died. They forget the fact that institutions wouldn't bring Dr. King in to speak. They forget the fact that Dr. King wasn't allowed to be on Morehouse College's board of trustees because they said he was a bad influence on young people. They said he went to jail too much. Right, like he was T.I. or something. Chief Keef, you know? We don't want to remember those moments. We don't want to remember February 1st, 1960. When a man right up the road, Franklin McCain, had the courage to sit down at a lunch counter and defend his own sense of human dignity. Yeah, they want you to remember the victory, but the Greensboro 4, they don't want you to remember. They don't want you to remember the fact that people like my uncles fought in World War II, gave their lives on the front lines for a country and rode back in the back of the train behind Nazi POWs. That my father from Wilkes County, Georgia, could only have a class trip to D.C., but couldn't have his picture taken in front of the Washington Monument. But dogs could. They don't want you to remember the fact that all of your grandmamas and granddaddies went through towns just like this and their money was counterfeit. Couldn't buy a hamburger, couldn't use a toilet. To remember truthfully is to wrestle with that stuff. It's to rummage through history and retrieve the truth. Not so you can wallow in the muck and mire or past pain, but so you can move forward. Because if you don't understand the past, you can't ever move forward. That's why I ask y'all to struggle with me, because that's what Dr. King wanted us to do. He wanted us to remember truthfully. He wanted us to listen carefully. He wanted us to remember truthfully. He also wanted us to discern wisely. Y'all gotta ask different questions. Y'all are the best and the brightest. Y'all are entering a world that will try to tell you simple answers to complex problems. The world that will try to convince you that poor people are poor just because they're lazy. And rich people just aren't. That the economy cracked because too many poor people try to get houses they couldn't afford. Now, we all know some trifling people, don't get me wrong. Some of y'all probably trifling. We all know somebody that tried to get a $50,000, that made $20,000 a year, tried to get a $500,000 house. We know people like that. Y'all probably know somebody that got $20,000 rims, don't even got a car. But to discern wisely is to say, is that the outlier, is that the exception, or is that the norm? You got to ask them. If y'all wanted to take simple answers, if y'all wanted to be reductive, if y'all didn't want to have a mature intellectual position, you wouldn't have come to this school. You'd be up at A&T. Y'all got to look at this world and say, wait a minute. At a moment where the country, just as in Dr. King's time, was trying to expand itself to offer more, why is the public under attack? We're trying to give health care to the whole country, and it's under attack. Trying to give unemployment benefits to the whole country, and it's under attack. Trying to preserve rights for veterans, it's under attack. How do you take something that is a good for the public and put it under attack? I'll tell you how. You make it black. Yep. It's a fascinating phenomenon. Remember Dr. King said, we had to whiten the face of poverty to make it real. You darken the face of poverty to make it irrelevant. so that anything that is public gets seen as black. And if it gets seen as black, it gets seen as disposable. Public schools, black. Public transportation, black. Public housing, black. Public assistance, black. Now, the interesting thing is, ain't none of the things really black. That's the best part, right? This is what Dr. King was talking about. We have to have a deeper analysis. Public schools exist in the suburbs. They exist in the rural areas. When rich people get homes and subsidies to build in the suburbs, that's public housing too. Everybody gets public transportation. And guess who's mostly on welfare? Public assistance. Young white women. And they deserve it. Don't get me wrong, I ain't hating on young white women. I want them to have it. They need it just like we do. But the fascinating thing is, and this is what Dr. King was talking about, we have to reimagine the way we think about ourselves, the way we think about race, because it's so jacked up in this country at times that